Welcome to Negro Please. I'm your host, Dallas Scott, co-host Hollywood Huff.
What up?
What's going on, sir? Here at Negro Please, we try to bring minority points of views to subjects and challenge views of common perspective. And sometimes we just rant and rave about things that are going on. I don't want to just say in the black community or minority communities, because these things affect everybody. This has been kind of a crazy week with some stuff that's hit the headlines. Some of it is very important, and some of it I just don't understand. Note that we will be using the N-word later on in the show, because we're going to talk about who has the right to use the word and who doesn't have a right to use the word. So if you're offended by that word, we're just giving you a heads up right now that that will be used later in the show. But right now, I think the biggest story in America, right, outside of the impeachment, or pending impeachment or whatever it is, I just try to stay away from him as much as possible because it's just not even worth talking about.
Yeah.
And I hope I'm pronouncing her name right. It's Atatiana Jefferson, right? Mm. Atatiana Jefferson, Dallas-Fort Worth area. Did I just mess it up?
Yeah, you did.
Yeah, great. Excuse me.
But it's all right. We know who you're talking
about. She's sitting at home playing video games with her son. Or her nephew, excuse me.
Yep.
The door is open. Neighbor thinks that's a little suspicious because that doesn't seem like her. So the neighbor does the neighborly thing. She's like, hey, or he was like, hey, the police are, there's something, I think there might be something wrong with my neighbor because it's not like her to leave the door open. Can somebody please check?
Yeah.
Police show up. Miss Jefferson is shot and killed.
Mm-hmm.
There's so much wrong with this story. Like, and I don't want to trivialize police jobs, but apparently these cops have never seen television before, right?
Yeah.
Doors open. They don't knock. They don't peek their head through the door and like, Miss Jefferson, Dallas-Fort Worth Police.
Right.
Are you okay? Anybody in here? No. They walk around to the back of the house. They see Miss Jefferson. 0.6 seconds. They shoot and kill her.
And that's from his body cam.
Yes.
From his body camera.
Yes. That's not an exaggeration. That's actual video footage from his body cam that shows that they never identified themselves.
Yeah.
And she was shot and killed.
Right.
There's so much wrong with this story.
I mean,
and it's not even that she's black at this point, right? I mean, that's a huge part of it. But at the other, like, I'm in my home. I'm supposed to be comfortable and safe.
Inside my own home.
Yes. So apparently they believe they know that she has a gun in the house, but they're not 100% sure. And I can't find the story again, but originally I saw a story that said her nephew said that she might have had a gun in her hand because she heard somebody in the backyard.
Yeah.
I think there was a video and it showed the body cam and there's like a gun on a dresser, which you're allowed to
have.
Yeah,
She's inside her house.
So that was the thing, was like there was kind of a story of like, oh, she basically went to go investigate this noise in the backyard and she got her gun first.
Which she is legally right to do.
You're legally allowed to do, which I have literally done. There was a time I was literally in my house. I saw there's a big brick wall in my backyard. So if you're in my backyard, you had to scale a wall, not a fence, but an actual brick wall. So I saw a flashlight go through my back door window and my brother was at my house. I didn't only grab my gun, I gave my brother a gun. And and I said, back me up. Cause I'm going to see who's in my backyard and what's like, if there's a burglar, I got my wife and kids in the house. I'm about to meet this dude in the backyard. You ain't getting in the house, right? And turns out, and thankfully, like, it was literally the police looking for somebody else who had been jumping. They thought he might have jumped into my yard, basically. So
you could have been killed right there.
I could be dead right now defending my home, right? From
what you legally have a right to do.
I legally have a right to do.
How did the police identify themselves, or how did you realize that it was the police?
He actually, when I went in the backyard, there was nobody in the backyard, and I looked over the wall. And it was a cop there, and I started talking to him.
Okay.
So that was kind of what happened. And it was like, you know, once I got in the backyard, then I could see on the other side of the wall, there were the police lights and everything else. But you couldn't see that from in my house because there's a wall back there, which is why I have the wall. But For this woman, she hadn't even left the house. She was still inside of her home.
They shot her through a window.
He shot her through a window, 0.06 seconds. Like, let me explain to you how fast 0.06 seconds is. So for those who don't know math, number one, that's less than 1 second. I train at the gun range and with various groups regularly. So I practice drawing a weapon from my holster and putting a round on a target to do this fast, right? Now, with
and you practice this actually all the time.
Right,
Like
yeah.
Anybody
This is
who
not
follows
something
you on
I've just done
Facebook
once.
knows that you do this all the time because you're always posting
I post my targets and what I'm shooting and everything. And I am and this is why I say, like, as fast as I am, I'm apparently not that good. Right. Because the first time I did it, it took me 1.5 seconds to lift my shirt, grab my gun, pull it out, and put a round on the target. 1.5 seconds.
Was the round accurate?
It wasn't a bullseye, but it would have shot a person. Okay. Like, you know what I mean? I'm always on a person. You know what I mean? Okay. So the best that I did, the absolute best that I've pulled around, that I've lifted my shirt, grabbed my gun, took it out of the holster and fired. And this is not even like aiming. This was like a shot from the hip, right? The first shot comes out from the hip, then you can aim, right? That first shot from the hip was 0.8 seconds, meaning 0.2 less than 1 second, right? And I did that thinking, man, I'm fast. You know what I'm saying? Like if it was a standoff like the Cowboys had, like a duel, like I'm like, hey, 90% of the people on this planet, baby, I got them. You know what I'm saying? Right. This cop would have shot me 4 times.
But he already had his gun drawn, which is
so he had, but that's how fast, 0.06 seconds.
I was telling you about this earlier. When I was a kid, there was an episode of 21 Jump Street where the big dude, Dom DeLuise's son, I can't think of his name right now. There's a scene, there's a whole episode dedicated to the fact that the show starts out, he's in a little convenience store and he's grabbing, groceries or whatever. Yeah. And he's got the stuff in his hands. A robber comes in, robs the store, shoots the clerk, and kills the clerk, and it's 2.1 seconds. Like, they watch the video review, and it takes 2.1 seconds for all this to happen. Right. This guy's got a handful of groceries. He feels guilty as hell because he's a cop and he couldn't do anything to save this guy's life. Right. They go through the entire episode. It's like him trying to figure out all the things he can do in 2.1 seconds. But he couldn't get his gun out in 2.1 seconds with his hands full. Right. And in the story, it's basically, hey, there's nothing you could have done. And he's like, but I could have done something. You know what I mean? Like, yeah. And so that's 2.1 seconds. We're talking about less than a second. Like, and no identification. Dallas Fort Worth police, put your hands up. Knock on the front door. Hello, is anybody in here? Your neighbor called for a wellness check. Are you okay? None of that took place. It was just basically seek and destroy. Right. It's like, it's almost like if you, I didn't watch the end of the video where the actual shot took place because I couldn't. But if you watch like the video up until that point, have you ever played like Fortnite or Call of Duty? Yeah. That's really what it looks like to me. Right. It's because it's body cam footage. You see them like hiding, like walking around things. Like it looked looking for a shot. Right. Like that was the intent. And I don't know his intention. I can't speak to that. But it was almost an intent to begin with. Right. Well, I mean, why do you... So, and this goes so much to the training and the mindset of a police officer, where I can understand the point of you have to protect yourself at all time. Of course, the policeman's always going to be thinking about, I have to get home safe. I have to watch my back. At the same time, we don't live in this state of war where people are just constantly out trying to kill the police 24/7, 365. Right. I'm not expecting a cop to put his guard down, but you don't need to have your gun out all the time. I mean, you're doing a welfare check. A neighbor called and said, hey, this woman's had her door open for a really long time. I'm a little worried about her. Can you go check? All right, we'll come out and check. So a cop gets there. He gets out of his car. He's at the house. What does he see? What? There's nothing in the camera, that in any of the video that shows something that it's like, okay, I can understand why he pulled his gun out here. Right. It makes absolutely zero sense. And the thing is, like, the front door's open. Like, how do you not enter through the front door and identify yourself? You go from the front door, walk all the way to the back of the house. My first thought is go to the front door.
The door is open. Knock on the door.
Yeah.
Hello,
Miss
police?
Jefferson.
Miss
Dallas
Jefferson.
Fort Worth Police. Are you in here?
Is anyone home?
Right.
You know, give that person a moment to get up, get out the shower, get dressed, do whatever they've been doing with the door open, and come to the front door and go, "Hey, what's up?" You understand? I mean, this is part of your job. Like
this is like the sad thing is, what if she just accidentally left her door open? Maybe it was hot in her apartment and she just wanted to cool off, didn't want to run the air conditioner. It was kind of cool outside. I mean, there's a million reasons why this door could have been open.
Right.
And kudos to her neighbor though, right? For being like, hey, this doesn't seem right.
Right. Just being a nice person, looking out for somebody. Yeah.
And I think the neighbor did the right thing by not trying to enter the house. Because if you walk in the house,
right,
and you see something's amiss.
Now you could be, you know what I mean, like you know, implicated or even for his own personal safety. He could have, you know, something could have been going on.
And he could,
Yeah. So it makes sense.
This person did the right thing, right? I've called for wellness checks on people before. You know, generally like older relatives or something that aren't answering their phone. It's, I'm like that's kind of out of place. Hey, can you guys go check on them? Yeah, sure, no problem. And they call me back, or my relative will come back like, thanks for checking on me, but I'm fine. I just didn't feel like talking on the phone to anybody today. Whatever.
Right.
So I have actually called the police on the police.
Wow. Talk about it. Tell me what happened.
So like, I always feel like here in Vegas, like the police that I've dealt with have always been the most respectful police I've ever dealt with in any state. I feel like generally when I deal with them, they're always very courteous. You know, my paperwork checks out. They, you know, they apologize for taking my time. They thank you for your cooperation.
Yeah. I
even had a friend of mine comes to town during the World Series of Poker. He wins $50,000. He's got a stack of cash.
Right.
We need to go to the bank. He's like, can you give me a ride to the bank? So we go to the bank. Him and another buddy of mine, they go in, they deposit the cash. They come out. And I'm backing out of the parking spot. And there's this guy jumping up and down, cussing and screaming. And like, so I roll down the windows and turn down the stereo, and I'm like, what are you talking? Like, I'm like, did I actually like run over this guy's foot or something? Like, I didn't see him because he's like livid. And the guy's like, you hit my car. I'm like, no, I didn't. There's 4 of us in the car now, right?
Yeah.
Like, if I hit his car, I would know that I hit his car. Like, there's no bump.
Right. Yeah.
I'm like, I didn't hit your car. You don't even have a dent in your car. He goes, no. When you opened the car door, you hit my car. I was like, my buddies, they were like, no, we didn't touch your car. Now, this guy's sitting in the driver's seat, right, waiting for his wife to come out the bank. Right. His daughter's in the back seat.
Right.
He doesn't realize that the car was hit, but his daughter says, Daddy, they hit the car with the door.
Ah, okay.
This guy does have a dent in his car.
Right.
There's a dent on the door. But both my buddies are as adamant, like, we didn't touch your car. It's just not even possible. We weren't even close enough to hit your car.
Right.
So I'm just like, forget you, man. We're about to leave.
Yeah.
This guy pulls out a badge, picks up his hip so we can see his gun. He goes, if you leave, I will arrest you right now for fleeing the scene of an accident.
Wow.
I'm an off-duty police officer. I was like, well, I'm not going to get shot here today over this. So I pulled back into the parking spot and I dialed 911.
Right.
And I explained to the lady, I'm like, look, there's a guy that claims to be an off-duty police officer. He's being an ass, like, essentially. And I want another police officer out here.
Yeah.
So about 5 minutes later, 2 police officers show up. One's just a regular patrol officer.
Yeah. And
the other one's sergeant, lieutenant, whoever it is, he's in charge.
Right, right.
And it's funny because, so like, I have a small SUV at the time. I'm driving a Ford Edge.
Right.
This guy's driving a Toyota Camry or a Nissan Altima, something a lot lower to the ground than my vehicle.
Right.
And the first cop comes out and he looks at it and he goes, this is the dent that you. I was like, yeah. And he goes, how did it get there? I'm like, he said, we opened the door and hit it. Yeah. And the cop's like, okay. But before he comes over, the sergeant comes over and he's like, he asks for what happened.
Yeah.
I'm like, look, this is what happened. We didn't hit his car.
Right.
This guy shows a gun, pulls out a badge, tells me he's going to arrest me for this and wants to put me under arrest. And A, I think he's out of line because A, we didn't do this. B, just because you're like, if he's a cop, he's not on duty. He should have called the police,
right?
Or
right,
you know
right.
what I mean? Like we're not in the act of committing a felony or any violent crimes.
Right.
That sergeant looks over at the door and he's like, and he looks at the guy and he goes, "Over this?" And he like pulls the guy over, and I can't hear what he's saying, but he's not happy.
Yeah.
He is really upset here, and you could tell he's scolding this guy.
Yeah. Because he didn't have to come up from around his desk.
Right.
And drive all the way over here.
So the other cop's taking a statement, and he takes our statements and all this stuff. And the sergeant or whoever he is, the guy in charge, comes over and he's just hot. And he goes, "Do you want to file a complaint?" And I said, "No, I really don't." And I asked my friends, I was like, "He's like, do you guys?" They're like, "We don't want to file a complaint. I don't want anybody to lose their job." Right. Because he's got kids to feed, obviously. And you know what I mean? Like, I don't want anybody to lose their job, but I think he needs to know that this is not okay. Like, you don't get to show a gun and a badge.
Right.
And threaten me.
Right.
Over a door ding, essentially. Right.
Yes.
So it just becomes this ordeal, and I have insurance. So I'm like, I'm not even worried about this. This isn't going to cost me any money, right? Maybe my insurance rate goes up, but it's not going to cost me like anything.
Right. Yeah.
So we exchange insurance information or whatever. My insurance investigator guy comes out to my house. He takes like all these measurements, right? Because I actually have a scratch up by my door handle.
Yeah.
And the guy's like, "Well, that's how the scratch got there." And before, the investigator's looking at the type of his car and my car, and he's like, because I took pictures of where the dent is and everything. And he's like, "I don't understand this." Like, even the investigator's like, "I don't understand.
It's not possible. Your door's too high to hit
and
his
that's exactly
door."
what eventually it ends up being. Like, the investigator goes out, measures his car, and he's like, and he calls me back. He goes, "You don't have hydraulics on your vehicle by any chance, do you?" I was like, "What?" He goes, "Yeah, I didn't think so." He's like, "We're not going to pay this claim." He's like, "There's 5.5 inches difference from where your door is to where this dent is.
Right.
It's not physically possible."
Right.
And I was like, "Okay." So nothing came of it. But like, the fact that we had to go through all of that.
Yeah.
Because this guy just wanted to show his badge and his gun, and like.
And that in essence is the problem that a lot of people have with police. And I mentioned this to you before. I know a lot of police officers. Personally, I've had a lot of interactions with police officers on duty and off duty. Some of them are great. Some of them are not so much. Some of them are just cool people. A lot of them are just regular folks. And what a lot of people don't seem to realize is, like, of all these police officers I know, when the conversation comes up of like, "Hey, how did you become a cop?" or "What made you become a cop?" Not one of them have ever told me like, "Oh, I became a police officer because I wanted to make the neighborhood better. I wanted to be a shining example in my community." Like, the number one answer that I get more than anything is, "Man, it's good job, good benefits, man. Take care of the family, make decent money, and if anything happens to me, my family taken care of." Like, and I say that not to bash or down police, but they are normal people. They are they're just like an electrician or the guy who works at the water company or the person who's been working at the grocery store for 20 years. Like, these are just regular people who needed a job. That's the job they chose. And as honorable as the job may be, with being that you have to put your life on the line at times, it doesn't make them perfect or any better than anyone else as far as their decision making.
I feel like this is all training. Right, it's the way we train,
and that's it. Is that most police officers don't get this great, amazing training that most people kind of perceive that they have.
Like, I have uncles, cousins. My brother isn't a cop anymore, but he was for years, who are police officers. And I listened to my brother, like, when he was going through the academy, and like the stuff he was talking about that he was learning. To me, all of it was aggressive.
Yeah,
like, there was no passive type of training involved in this at all.
Right.
And when you're taught to be aggressive, you will be aggressive, right? It's like a dog.
Yeah.
Right? If you train a dog to be an aggressive dog, he's going to be aggressive and attack. Pit bulls aren't naturally like more aggressive than other dogs.
Exactly.
It's the way they're trained and the way they're taught.
Right.
I know people who have great pit bulls who obey commands. They sit, they talk, they're cuddly, they want to jump up and down and play all the time.
Right.
And I also know people who have trained their pit bulls to be aggressive, to be defensive, and to be
attack dogs in a
protective.
Sense. Yeah.
I don't, and I feel like police are the same way, and I don't want to equate them to animals, but it is that way, right?
It's how you're trained,
right?
There have been plenty of times where there was a situation and the aggressive cop showed up first.
Yes,
and the situation just continued to spiral out of control. He called for more backup, and it didn't get better until a non-aggressive police officer began to speak to people.
Yeah,
and in his non-aggressive way, he got all the people to do exactly what he wanted them to do without any issues.
Right.
And it was like, if this guy had came out here first, this whole situation would have been resolved in 20 minutes.
Yep.
But we got the guy who, I don't know, maybe dude just woke up on the wrong side of the bed. Maybe he just maybe he had been having a bad day. He's on the 10th hour of his 12-hour shift. We don't know. The thing is, most people don't care. They have a situation that reasonable people can no longer resolve, so they have to call the police. When the police come, they need to be the most reasonable of all the people involved. We don't need a third party coming in, being even more hostile, which a lot of people, I mean, honestly, I'm a law-abiding citizen. I do my best to follow every law, with probably the exception of the speed limit, all day long, right?
Right.
But when police show up, or they get behind me, or I get nervous.
I can't tell you how many times a police officer has made a U-turn and come behind me, and I just pull over.
Yeah.
And then they're like, "Why did you pull over?" I'm like, "Dude, we're just saving time here, right?
Yeah.
Because you were going to pull me over anyway, and here's all my paperwork." So I had an instance with a police officer once. There are two that come to mind. One was like, I was married at one time, and I was driving my ex-wife's Lincoln, right? Because she had my truck. She needed to carry something to work. My real last name is Long. I use Dallas Scott as a stage name, but my real last name is Long. It's, like, there aren't, outside of my family, like, there aren't, like, you're never going to see my last name.
Yeah.
So I get pulled over, and the cop's like, "Why'd you pull over?" I was like, "Because you just made a U-turn in the middle of the street. You're going to pull me over. I was like, "What do you need, sir?"
Right.
And he's like, "Whose car is this?" I'm like, "It's my wife's car." I give him license, registration, everything. We got everything. I'm always legit. Like, I'm never giving you a reason.
Right, of course.
I'm always got my stuff there. And so he comes back, and he's like, "Who's Jamie?" I'm like, "She's my wife." "Why do you have Jamie's car?" "Why does it matter? She's my wife."
Right.
Because she has my truck. Not that it's any of your business.
Yeah.
But why does it matter?
Yeah.
Like, and like, we end up having this 5-minute conversation.
Yeah.
About why I'm driving my wife's car.
Yeah.
Why am I having this conversation?
Yeah.
And it's funny because I actually called to get her on the phone, and I did this on purpose because she was a paralegal at a law firm.
Right.
So when she answers the phone, she always answers with her name and Balo Becker Law Firm. How can I help you?
Right.
And as soon as she said that, he was like, "Have a good day, sir."
Yeah, exactly.
Like,
you know.
And there was one other instance where, like, this one just really it still to this day boils my skin. Like, we're at a baseball game, my son's baseball game, and there becomes this big. I yell at an umpire because the second baseman for the other team is obviously hurt, and he's laying on the ground crying.
Right.
And these are probably 10, 11-year-old kids.
Yeah.
So he got hit by the ball, and he's obviously hurt. And I yelled at the umpire. I was like, "Hey, pay attention to what's going on. Why do we still have kids up here batting when this kid is on the ground?"
Laid out.
Laid out. And that one statement caused other people to yell at the refs or the umpire, and then somebody yelled at them. And then, like, at this point, I'm not even in the top. Like, I'm not even in it, right? Like, it's between them and the umpire, and they're going back and forth, and the parents from both teams or whatever. And I have a mouthful of sunflower seeds. And I'm spitting out the sunflower seeds. And this woman said, "I spit on her." I was like, "I didn't spit on you. Like, I was, and if I did, I apologize. It's not my intent. I'm just spitting out my sunflower seed."
Right.
She calls the police on me.
Oh, Lord.
One cop goes to talk to her, and the cop that comes to me doesn't ask me a word. He goes, "Why'd you spit on her?" I was like, "I didn't spit on her." "Yes, you did." "No, I did not."
Yeah.
So I had a mouthful of sunflower seeds. And like I was actually still eating sunflower seeds when he came to talk to me. I'm like, just like I do now. And if I spit on her, it wasn't intentional. I was just spitting out sunflower seeds.
Right.
And this cop just wanted, I was already guilty. Like, there was nothing I could say.
Yeah.
And she was white. I I don't know if that had anything to do with it, but from my standpoint, how could I just automatically be guilty here?
Right.
If the cop, first of all, I'm still married time, but she had not been there, I would have went to jail, because you can't get in a grown man's face nose to nose and talk to me like that. That's just, and she kind of stepped in and grabbed me and pulled me back. And then the other cop came over and he was much more civil.
Right.
You know what I mean? And he was just like, other people said he was spitting out sunflower seeds, like, you know, and apparently, like, I carry a lot of sunflower seeds to baseball games, and people who like are at the games all the time, like you play the same team. It's a common thing,
right.
And people know, they're like, he's always got sunflower seeds, like he's always, like, you know what I mean, like, and so that cop was more civil, and he's like, can you just at least go apologize? I was like, I've already apologized to her like 7 times, but I'll go do it again.
Yeah.
And if he hadn't come over, it would, like you said, the aggressive cop came first, it could have been a much bigger deal.
Right.
Because, like, I just wasn't going to let this dude talk to me like that. Kaiva chimed in on our Facebook here, and she says, I wasn't aware of this. She said that apparently the neighbor called it in as a wellness check, but the dispatcher changed it to an intruder or something wrong. And I haven't heard this before. I haven't seen this before. So if that's correct, like, I want to know why the dispatcher did that also.
Yeah, I would definitely want to know why the dispatcher would change it. And also, yet and still,
like, does the dispatcher do this because it makes it more urgent?
Yeah, you know what I mean? Like, is this common?
Right.
You know, I mean, and that's the thing is, there's so much being translated to how things go and what happens, and you know, the neighbor calls in the dispatcher, then the dispatcher has to call the police or a unit or whatever to go and check on this person. Maybe changing it to something gets them to go out there right away. I don't think there's anything in my mind or heart that can happen that can justify this man firing a shot in 0.06 seconds. I don't think the air from your mouth is finished evaporating before. I mean, if you're saying, hey, stop, hey, hands up, hey, police officer, freeze, like whatever word you use, there has to be a response time. Right? And unless
he didn't use any words.
And that's what I'm saying. Like, so with the fact that he didn't even use words, and
if he says Dallas Fort Worth police, that takes longer than 0.06 seconds to say.
Right.
Or 0.6.
0.06.
Yeah. Like, that takes longer than that to say. If she reacts from that, like I just.
Yeah, it's still
we could talk about this until it just frustrates people to death. Like,
yeah, there will never, in my opinion, this officer, part of it, I'm always going to blame the training, which is the establishment of the police department and how they're training their officers. Then there will always be personal accountability, which I think so far everything that we've seen, which is kind of contrary to how things have gone in the past since America was created, as far as police officers killing black people. We've recently seen kind of a string of some of these public cases, at least the officers being charged. This is the fastest I've ever seen anyone charged with a police officer charged with murder, which means that swift justice is possible.
Yeah.
If it's not, it's because they're looking for a way to cover it up.
He went to work and he was going to get fired and he quit instead.
Yeah.
And then, like, before he could get home, he's already charged with murder.
I mean, yeah, but I'm pretty sure, like, he walked in and somebody was like, you about to be fired.
Yeah.
And he was like, well, I quit.
Right.
And before he could get his actual fired pink slip, basically.
Yeah.
And so he quit. And yeah, by the time he loaded up his stuff in his car, he was met at home with a warrant being charged with murder. And so far so good, as they say. So it's very unfortunate that this happened, but I am happy to see that so far, at least, some form of justice, at least in that police department. That's a step in the right direction, even for the community in itself to heal, because now at least the chief can come out and say, hey, look, this cop did something wrong and we're going to punish him for it. And I can appreciate that, even if at this moment he's not been, sentenced or charged or found guilty. That's the other part of the justice system that we have to worry about. But for right now, at least the police department has done something. Hopefully they use this as a teachable moment and say, you know what, we need more training. We need something better than what we've had, because
speaking of training, we could talk about this for 3 days. And nothing's going to change, right? This poor woman is gone.
Yes.
Her nephew's been traumatized by this. We'll find out the outcome with the murder trial, and we'll talk more about it then. The N-word.
Oh, yeah.
As a black person, I've always been conflicted by this word, right? About whether or not even we as blacks should use this word.
Yeah.
All right. Part of me says that as long as we keep using the word, we give credence to the word and we allow other people to use the word. And part of me says we've been oppressed for 400 years. We can use this word if we want to. So I'm not really, I actually don't know where I personally stand on this word, because I just kind of go back and forth.
Yeah.
Depending on my mood with this word. There is a 9-year-old boy in Maine, and this just doesn't even make any sense to me. The assistant principal, he's goes to Willard Elementary School in Maine. The assistant principal is trying to make a point.
Right.
And apparently this kid was calling other kids names, and that's why he gets called in the office. So the assistant principal decides the name he's going to call this child is the N-word.
Mm-hmm.
Because he wants to show this child that words can hurt.
Right.
I have so many issues with this. First of all, of all the words to use, that is absolutely the wrong one, right? To tell a black child, right?
So in context, really quick, here's the quote of what the principal said.
Right.
He said, he pulls him in office because his kid's calling people names, 4th grader, calling people names. So this kid's around like between 8 and 10 years old, right?
Right.
And he pulls him in and he says, what if I call you a nigger and told you I was just joking around? How would that make you feel? That's the quote, right? So go ahead, because just so people have it in context of what was said and how he said it.
I understand the point he's trying to make. My problem with this is, A, that's the absolute worst word to use. But on the other hand, like, this is something he's got to get the parents involved with and let them handle it, right? Because he can't use another word here either. You can't say, what if I called you stupid?
Yeah.
How would you feel? What if I called you dummy? What if I called you butthole? Like, there's no word you can say to a 9-year-old kid that's not out of line here in this position, right?
Right.
And the school superintendent says he's going to get more training. The assistant principal. They don't give the assistant principal's name, at least in the article that I have here. I don't think training is the proper thing here. Like, to me, this is a fireable offense. And I understand that it's a fireable offense because it should be a teaching moment for all principals and vice principals. I can't even imagine that, like, how does this even come to your head, though, right? Like, how do you're talking to a 9-year-old little black boy, and, like, how does that word... And again, like, I don't know what other word he could use, right? Like,
they're also in Maine, which is... I don't know if that says much, but everybody I know that lives in Maine always only knew one black person.
Right.
So there's not a large representation of black people in Maine.
I mean,
apparently.
Basic Trina, she's from Connecticut, right next door, and she said she knew 2 black kids and they were white as can be. So, like,
right. So, but here's my conflict about it is, even myself, I'm guilty of saying, you know what, our school systems need to do better. We need to do more. Our teachers and principals need to be more active. I mean, clearly they need more money. They need more support from parents, from the state. They need financial support. They definitely need more help. But we always say they should do a better job at what they do. So there's a part of me that's saying, you know what, this assistant principal was attempting to do that job. Then there's another part of me that's saying this assistant principal failed at this job, because I'm reading this statement and I'm thinking, this is something I would say to my child, right?
Right.
How would you feel if I called you this? Because I've said this to my child, right? You don't call people names. You don't call your brother. You don't call your sister's names. You don't call your cousin's names. You know, well, how would you feel if I say this to you, right? But as a parent, that's my job, right? And so we got to call her. No? Oh, okay. We don't got to call her. All right. So as a parent, this is my job. As an assistant principal, I feel like his job could have been, if he would have said, how would you feel if I call you a name? And then said I was just joking around. Or whatever names he was calling these other kids, if he said, how would you feel if I called you that? And then said I was joking around. Or if he just calls me into the office and is like, you know what? I'm going to have a conference with your parents. I'm going to get a hold of your parents and let the parents do that job.
This is a job for the parents, right?
This is a job because there's nothing, to me for the parents.
There's no other word he could have used or said that makes any of this okay. Because if he calls a kid stupid, he's wrong. If he calls him dummy, he's wrong. If he calls him any other name, he's wrong.
Because this is what I would have said this to my child. But if my child said my teacher said this to me, I understand these parents' points, or I would have been talking to the principal face to face. Like, why did you say this to my child? You know what I mean? Like, there's a handful of things you just cannot say to a child. And of all the things you can say, using a racially charged word like this one is definitely off limits.
Right. In a minute, I believe that there is one instance where anybody can say the N-word. And I'll tell you what it is in a minute. But right now, Carrie is on the phone. Carrie, are you with us?
How do you know it's me? Hey, Dallas.
Hi, how you doing, Carrie? How are you doing?
Hey, so I do have a question specifically for you, Dallas. I heard you say that you understand that man called, I'm a white woman, just in case you can't tell, but how can you say that that was even acceptable for him to say that?
I didn't say it was acceptable. I understand the point he was trying. I understand that he was the point he was trying to make. I do not understand him using that word. I do not understand him having this conversation. I understand that he was trying to make the point that you can hurt other people with your words. I understand that. There is no excuse, and I don't understand any way how he could have got that word in there.
Right.
Yeah. So no, I understand
I don't like it.
that he was trying to, where he was trying to go with this, but the way he did it was way out of line.
Right.
It's not only disrespectful to the child, like kids are supposed to be able to go to assistant principals for help too, right? They're like police officers of the school, right? They should be somebody that if you have a problem, you should be able to go to the assistant principal or the dean or, another teacher and feel comfortable enough to say,
right,
this is how I feel and this is going on. Help me. This kid has no recourse now, right? Now the next time something happens to this kid, the last person he can go to in his mind is the assistant principal. He has no recourse and no help. So if somebody's bullying him, and again, this kid was accused of bullying other kids, right? And there should be no tolerance for bullying. I get all of that. The kid was wrong, but the vice principal was wrong. Like everybody is wrong in this situation.
Yeah.
Right?
I feel like maybe if he was a little bit older, like a high schooler, and a principal says that to you, that's a little bit of shock value. But at that age, that totally gave the wrong message, I think. I
think if he was older, I don't think you could use that word still, but I think you could use words like, what if I said you're stupid? Like, or what if you're a teenager, you kind of get that point a little more. I still think that word can't be used, but there are other things like, like what if I called you a bum or a classless?
Because here's the thing also, it's not like he just went for just a random insult. Like, like 9-year-olds, they make up goofy words. Like, what if I called you a doo-doo head?
Right.
Or something like that. He went for like the maximum pain word that even I'm a 39-year-old man. Like if he said that to me, I kind of back off like, wait a minute, bro, who you talking to?
Right.
Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, and you saying this to a 9-year-old, that is, it's completely unacceptable to use that word. Even, and again, I get his intention or her or the assistant principal. I understand the point that was attempted to be made, but using this word with the 9-year-old, completely unacceptable.
Right. No matter what the 9-year-old was doing.
Yeah,
and the 9-year-old kid is wrong. Like the parents need to have a conversation with this kid. Be like, you can't be bullying other kids in school.
Right.
You can't act like this because there should be no tolerance for that either. Right.
Exactly. Yeah.
But the way it was handled was even worse than the situation.
Yeah.
Right.
Well,
hey guys, I'm going to dip out right here, and because I got to get back to work, I just wanted to call and ask that question. You guys have an awesome podcast show, whatever it's called. I watch it for my job, and I love it. It's awesome.
Thank you very much for checking in.
Later.
Thank you. Anybody else wants to call in, the number is 702. I don't have my glasses.
702-608-3259.
Yeah,
that's right.
Yeah. And it's on the screen.
Wait, I can't believe Steve had to look at that. He's been on the Gorilla Crossing Vegas Hype Networks for 3 years. We mention it at least 5 times a show.
I I don't know nobody's phone number. I know my wife's phone number, my mom's phone number.
I feel like it's a phone number you should know if you go to jail. Like, you would know to call the radio station because you hear so much.
I call my mom and my wife. Like, the only two numbers I know.
Because Quan's not picking up the phone when he realizes he's from jail anyway.
Exactly. I'm calling this number.
This is a collect call from Clark County Detention Center. If you accept, press 1.
Help me, Steve, help me. All right. So this Gina Rodriguez.
Yes.
She is the star of Jane the Virgin. I've actually never seen Jane the Virgin, but I am a fan of Gina Rodriguez for this fact and this fact alone. In 2015, she won a Golden Globe. And I thought that her speech was very inspiring for young people. Yeah. Especially young people of color. Mm-hmm. There's actually a point in there. She brought attention to her father, and there's always so much about not having minority fathers in the home and blah blah blah. But she made a very good point to point out to her that her father tells her every day, that gives her this affirmation that she's supposed to say every day, and the affirmation is, "Today's a good day. I can and I will." And when she won the Golden Globe, she said, "Today's a good day. I can and I did." Which I thought was just, the whole speech itself was great. Yeah. Gina Rodriguez is catching heat right now for saying the N-word. She said nigger. And here's the problem. Okay. She said this on Instagram, but there's more to the story. She's on Instagram singing a fugues song. The lyrics use the word nigger. She just repeats the lyrics to the song. Right. And she's catching hell for this. Sean Stockman of Boyz II Men actually came to her defense and was like, hey, she's just singing a song. Besides, she's Latina and she's brown skinned, so she can use it anyway. I agree with Sean Stockman 50% of this. Yeah. In my opinion. Okay. The one time anybody can use the word nigger is when they're singing a song. If you put it in the song, you are giving people the right to say it. Because you want people to sing your songs, right? Can you imagine going to a Wiz Khalifa concert, right? Right. And rappers, singers, song, they all do this, right? Let's say it's half black audience and the other half is Latinos and white people and Asians, right? You put the microphone out in the crowd because you want to hear them sing the next line, right? Right. And the next line of the song has the word nigger in it, right? Right. All the white, Asian, and Latino people are supposed to shut up at that point.
It's usually a GGA though, so
that doesn't matter. I personally don't separate the two words.
There's a big difference.
Look,
growing up as a white guy, just a word from the producer. I grew up white.
You didn't get this color.
Listening to hip hop. Don't have a camera in my car because I try not to do it now just because, but try to listen to Wu-Tang and repeat a Method Man song and not say the N-word.
Right, that's what I'm saying. Like, if you put it in a song, people should like.
Look.
Again, I don't know Gina Rodriguez, and I've never seen the show. She's repeating the lyrics of a song.
Yes, 100%.
I don't understand why this is a problem. And black people are coming at her. My problem with black people is this: if you're going at her, right? Cardi B used the word nigger in almost every record she does. Yeah. She's not black by definition of what you call our culture in America black. She's Dominican, Trinidad, and Spanish. Mm-hmm. How does she get to use the word in her raps that she writes, but Gina Rodriguez cannot repeat the word when she's just singing along with the song?
And so here it is. Here it is right here. So we give you a little history lesson. Back when hip hop was hip hop and it was only black people listening to hip hop, and then it kind of became rap and other people start listening to it and whatever, right? Before then, artists only went gold. Like if you were doing great as a rapper, you had a gold album. Right. Like
that was a big deal.
Check the 80s. If you had a gold album in the 80s, you was on top of the game. Like you were the man,
somehow
right?
Got the platinum,
right?
Which is just for people who don't, gold is 500,000, platinum is a
million sold, right?
Like if you got to 1 million as a rapper in the 80s, early 90s, you were just absolutely the greatest thing in the world.
But here's the thing, though. Back when hip hop, which we love so much, was only black people, we only went gold, right?
Right.
We didn't start going platinum till other people got involved in the culture and started listening to the music.
Yes.
Right? I hate to be the one to tell you this, but a lot of white people start listening to hip hop when they heard the Beastie Boys rapping.
Right.
So white people heard the Beastie Boys, and I'm not talking about like diehard, like just hip hoppers, like because there were some white people who were listening before the Beastie Boys.
Right.
You know what I mean?
But Beastie Boys made it mainstream for
but Beastie Boys, it was like they were white. White people were like, oh, what is this music? You know what I mean? And they had a lot of guitars in their album, License to Ill. You know what I mean? So there was a lot of white people who all of a sudden was like, oh, this hip hop thing is pretty cool. So now, after the Beastie Boys, and you can like do a historical check on this, after Beastie Boys, more black artists, hip hop artists started to go platinum because they had a bigger fan base, right? And it's not just white people. We're talking about Hispanic people, Asian people, all people who are not black, right? So if we are making music and we are benefiting from the music we make because the fans of this music are multicultural, if you want them to be a fan, you want them singing your song. Right. If you want them singing your song, that means they have to say the lyrics. If you put nigga in the lyrics,
they're going to say it. Right.
Like,
I don't understand this having to bleed. That is the one, in my mind, the one instance where anybody can say the word, because you're just singing a song. It's not directed towards anybody. You're not being malicious in it. You are singing a song and repeating the artist's artistic value of the song. Right. I just...
And that was Rick Rubin and Russell Simmons that created that because they came out with Walk This Way with Run DMC, crossing over with Aerosmith. The same year as Beastie Boys came out. So they knew what they were doing marketing-wise.
Right,
so
exactly.
Like, my background, I did 27 years worth of hip-hop radio. Like, I was a radio personality on hip-hop radio for 27 years.
Right.
At one point, the Fugees was the highest, that album was the highest-selling hip-hop album of all time. I don't know what it is right now, but they were multi-platinum. I think they sold like 9 million at one point, and it's up since then because they still sell. So like, you're talking about, you don't sell 9 million albums and selling to black people.
Yeah.
Hey, we don't buy that. We just copy from our friends.
It probably ain't 9 million. It's only like 12 million black people in the country. Right. All of us didn't buy that album.
Right. Like you don't sound like the Fugees were one of the really big first crossover hip hop groups. Like where white people were like, oh my God, I got to get this album. Yeah. Like. So,
and if you don't know, that album is called The Score. Yes. It is dope.
It is. It's
still dope.
It's up there on top 10 hip hop albums in my mind of all time. Yeah. Lauryn Hill, coincidentally, has my favorite hip hop album of all time. To me, the Miseducation of Lauryn Hill is from. There's not a bad track on that album. There's not one track you can't listen to over and over.
I love that album.
Yeah. So I don't understand the uproar about this because, okay. I disagree with Sean Stockman here because, and this is why Latinos can't say nigger.
Okay.
Because I can't say spick.
I agree.
If I call a Latino that's offensive.
Okay. And here's my beef with the who can and who can't say it and why. And it's like you mentioned Cardi B. She'll claim 3 different, islands where she's from, right? She's allowed to do that, right? Fat Joe, he went on record saying that, most Latinos are just black people or, Puerto Ricans are black people, whatever. And that's fine. But here's the deal. When asked about where they're from, what's their nationality, what's their ethnicity, they don't say black.
No.
They say Puerto Rican or Mexican or Venezuelan or whatever. So here's the thing. As a black American, because of slavery, I don't have a home country. My home country is America. So I am a black American. That's who I am. I'm not an African American. I don't know where I'm from in Africa. That paperwork got lost on the slave ship. All right. So as a black man in America who is in black culture in America, the word nigga is a part of black culture in America because of slavery. So for other cultures, be it most of them are some sort of Hispanic or Spanish culture, who always seems to want to chime in and say, oh, we should be able to say that word, like basically just willy-nilly because we black too. Well, wait a minute. Y'all ain't claiming y'all black when y'all get pulled over by the police. Like, y'all ain't claiming y'all black when we out marching.
Yeah,
you understand what I'm saying?
Right. Like, if you want to be...
So if you want to be black, then when they ask you, and that little box comes up on your application, check the black box. Right. You understand what I'm saying? When people talk about, when you get on TV, don't bring up your Hispanic culture and all your people from the barrios or wherever y'all from. No, start talking about black stuff. That's what I want to hear. And then, as my grandmas and my aunts used to say, then you earn the right to say that word.
Right.
Now, me personally, I don't think anybody should just run around saying it. But if I'm going to give somebody a pass for saying it, it's going to be somebody who understands the power of that word. Because it's not just like calling somebody.
It's almost become an adjective, right? Or a pronoun, right? Like he, she, they. Like people use that word. And I hear it a lot from non-blacks where they refer to their friends like it's just become this normal word.
Yeah.
And people act like it's still not, like it's not offensive anymore.
Right.
Like it's just a part of the English language now. Right. Like the F word is to Europeans. Like, it's not. No. It's still an offensive word. It still holds a lot of negative weight in this country.
And that's the difference. It's just like there's name calling, and then there's what we would call a racial slur.
Right.
And no matter how you use the N word, even if you use it as a term of endearment, saying my nigga and these my niggas and whatever, it's still a negative word.
Yep.
When you say that around you and your private company, that's fine. You're in your house, I don't care what words you use. When you're out in public, it's not just etiquette. I mean, it's simple respect. You don't use that word. Simply because there are still people walking this earth who that word was used to demean and to hurt and to weigh them down and to basically verbally abuse them with, right?
So I have a friend. We've known each other. She was actually like my first official date, like when I was a kid. We went and saw Troop and Kwame at a concert. And we've been friends for years.
Kwame.
Yeah.
All right.
And I'm actually the goddaughter to her child, or godfather to her child. And she uses the word, and she thinks she can because she grew up in the hood.
Right.
And she likes to say now, like when I call her on it, she's like, I'm more hood than you, nigga. I'm like, hey, that's not a good thing. Right. Be like, I'm sorry I went off and got an education, but being more hood than somebody. Yeah. But she thinks because she grew up there and everybody she knows is black that it gives her credence to use the word, and it doesn't. And my daughter, who I love, and she's gonna go off on me after I do this. My daughter is mixed. She looks like a white girl. She's got nappy hair. She uses this word all the time, but she gets so offended when white people use the word.
Yeah.
And I'm like, her mom was telling me a while back, they're sitting in a family restaurant called Perkins back in Minnesota.
Right.
And my daughter's using the word. And she said a black family comes in. She's like, there's like 6, 8 of them. And they sit down at the table next to her. And she looks at my daughter and she says, you better not say that word one time. Yeah. Because I don't have time to explain to these people that your dad is black. And you think that you're part black, that you think that you can use this word. She's like, I'm not going through this. And I get her point that, yes, she's part black and black people can use the word. But I don't think she should use the word at all. And she uses it like an adjective.
Right,
like her friends, like whether white or black, that's what yeah. But she never says it in a demeaning way, or you know what I mean? Like, it's not okay. Like, you know what I mean? I have to tell her this. It's not okay. And especially because you're so white, people are just never going to understand.
They're never going to look at you and associate that word in a term of positivity. You're always going to be seen as somebody who's taking advantage of a situation or that word simply because of the way you look. Right. And a lot of this confusion about this word, unfortunately, was created by black people which we're pretty good at taking a bad situation and flipping it and making it into a good thing. Like, Massa gave us the most terrible parts of the animals to eat, and we turned it into soul food. I mean, it's what we've done for hundreds of years. They called us this word, and we flipped it. But at some point, some things don't need flipping anymore. Like, we have to grow up. We got to grow out of this stage of, yes, you have freedom of speech. That means you should just say anything.
So,
can I ask you a question real quick, too?
Yeah.
Did hip-hop help make that word desensitize that word.
100%.
Yes.
Because
I
growing
mean,
up
we got
in
a
hip
group
hop
called Nigga
like,
with Attitudes. You're not like white people aren't going to call them niggas with attitudes.
Yeah,
I mean, come on.
exactly.
Like you gave credence to the word. Like they have to call you NWA.
And
I mean,
especially growing up in that era, like being in
Right.
7th and 8th grade when NWA came out, we didn't even know the power of the N-word at all. We didn't even realize what it was necessarily.
and you sang those lyrics too, didn't you?
And we knew
they call us niggas with
we
attitude.
knew the
like,
songs,
exactly.
and we didn't know the power of those words because it became a slang word.
Right.
And so you grow up and realize that what people are offended by that, and now, being 43, living off those songs for 30 years,
Right.
and now when I do have the songs playing in my car, I have to stop myself, even if I'm alone, most of the time,
Right.
95% of the time, and not say it.
Right.
Anthony chimed in online on Facebook and he says, why aren't white people called European Americans? We've actually talked about this before in a previous show, how I can't stand being called African American because you don't call anybody else out by their color or race.
Right.
Like Mark also said, as a 58-year-old black man, I don't tolerate being called nigga by anyone, black or white. And I agree with him. Like,
Yeah,
it's
good.
not a word. Even when black people call me that, like, it's being, like, I feel like I'm being spit on, right?
Yeah.
Because you of all people,
Yeah. You
as
should
a
know
black
better.
person, you
Yeah.
know how hurtful and hateful that word is.
Right.
So now I got a problem with you because, right? You know
Yeah.
what I mean? Like, my response is, I got your nigga, right?
I
Like,
mean, yeah,
You want me to be, we can do this. Like,
There was a big this was probably 10, 15 years ago, but there was a big kind of a movement about eliminating nicknames and it was all about gangs and like how do we stop gang violence, and a lot of it is just subconscious things that we're taught and grown with, and there was a couple gang members. One of them, he's in a lot of movies now. I know he was in like Training Day and a few other things, and he said one thing that he does when he goes to these neighborhoods is, well, two things. He said first he gets them to stop using nicknames. He was like, look, you go by Bone. Stop calling your kids Lil Bone. Nah, Bone dies with you. Everybody knows you as Bone, fine. Your kid, his name is Michael. Everybody's gonna call him Michael. And he said the reason why, it's easy to kill Bone. Bone ain't a person,
right,
but Michael is. It's easy to kill a nigga, because a nigga ain't a person, but Michael is. You see, well, we about to go ride on these niggas. Okay, let's do it. We about to go ride on Michael. Wait a minute, who is Michael? You see what I'm saying? Like,
No,
like
that's a very good point.
there's a subconscious thing that happens. And when you look at the power like that, and this was 10, 15 years ago, I'm 39 now, so I was in my 20s back then, and that was when I was like, you know what? This dude has a point. Like, because even I was guilty of like, yeah, that's my nigga. You know what I mean? Like, whatever. You know, it's never a big deal. I grew up saying that, right? I was 8 or 9 years old when NWA came out. That was like the first tape I had. My parents didn't know I had. I got in trouble when they found out I had that tape. You know, I had the cassette tape. You know what I'm saying?
So Anthony also responded on our Facebook live feed. He said, it's not a black thing, it's a white thing. Don't shift the problem onto black people. It's not a black thing. It's not a white thing. It's a people thing, right? And if we as black people keep perpetuating this, we can't expect other people to stop.
Look, if you don't clean up your yard and people are walking down the street littering and they throw trash in your yard, you don't clean up your yard to begin with. It looks like a dump. So why do you expect anybody else to respect it? So I clean up my yard. And if I see somebody walking through my yard or trying to throw trash in my yard, I check them real quick like, hey, this ain't the dump. Granted, it's my yard. I can keep it however I want to, but I can't expect anybody else to respect it if it doesn't look or present itself to be respectable.
This is like a big thing with me, and I you and I have had this conversation a lot. Whether you're white, black, Asian, Latino, if you give people a reason to believe that the stereotype is true, they will always believe the stereotype is true.
Exactly.
Until we stop perpetuating the stereotypes and being the stereotypes. And this isn't just black people, this is Latinos. I mean, the stereotype is Latinos live 14 people to a house.
Right.
Right. You know what I mean? Like, which is not true, but like, you know, like,
we all know somebody though. You know what I'm saying? Right. So there's always going to be that.
And we all know that person, that black person who does disrespectful things and acts like the people on TV that we don't like watching on TV.
Exactly.
We know the white person that's trailer trash. right?
Exactly.
And white people don't want to be associated with that. We know the white person that's a racist bigot, and other white people don't want to be associated with that. But because we know that one guy, you think in the back of your mind that they're all like that. When I was a kid, I went down to South Carolina. My father's family is from South Carolina. And I don't remember what this white lady said or something like that. And I remember thinking that, and I told my cousin this, and she said, I said, God, this is why I don't live down south. This is why I live up north, because I can't handle all these racist people. And my cousin said something to me, and it stuck with me for like 30 years now. She said, the difference between living up north and being down here is, she said, down here, you know they all hate you.
Right.
Living up north, you don't know which ones are going to stab you in the back.
Yeah.
And for a long time, I took that as gospel. But in reality, it's not true. There are plenty of white people in the South who are not racist.
Yeah.
And who are not bigots. And who come to defend black people because they are human beings and they believe that human beings should be treated with a certain amount of respect.
Right.
But I was a young kid, and when she said that, I was like, you're right. All these white people down here are racist. That's not true. But that, I don't know, I was 12, 15 years old. That always stuck in my head. So every time I went down south, I just assumed that every white person I met was racist.
Right.
But the more I went down south, the more I realized that this stereotype isn't true. There are plenty of very friendly, welcoming black people who apologize for, or white people who apologize for their ancestors and feel ashamed by that. And they try to make a difference, you know, however they can, and to treat other human beings like human beings. So as long as we as a people or other races continue to act that way, then people aren't going to respect you. And then you put it bad on the rest of us, right? Because it only takes one.
Yeah.
Right? Antonio Brown has been a complete jackass this year in football, right?
Right.
But now we just think that all football players are complete jackasses.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like,
all
these guys are entitled. They got too much money.
Right.
The stuff that's going on in the NBA right now, like with LeBron and David Orley, like all the back and forth. Oh, LeBron's just entitled. So now they think, oh, all you sports athletes are entitled, right? Like, no.
It's only two of them.
Right.
Like, you know what I mean? It's two people going back and forth.
Right.
But there's like 5,000 members of this NBA organization. You know what I mean?
Right. It's not, you're talking about once. And people have a hard time separating one from the group. And we've heard this every day of our entire lives. One bad apple spoils the bunch.
Right.
And as long as we as a race allow this to happen, we need to check other black people.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? White people need to check other white people. Asians need to check other Asians. Because if, as a black person, if I'm checking a white person, it just seems like it's coming out of a place of negativity and hate, right?
Right.
But as a black person checking another black person, you have to understand that I've been there.
Right.
I see the world pretty much a similar way as you do, because we've gone through the same things.
It's one thing to check somebody because you feel like they're out of line, and another thing to check them out of love.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Like, look, I'm looking out for you.
Right.
You understand what I'm saying? Like I don't want you to use this word, because the minute you start using it, it gives other people the idea that, oh, it must be okay to do this. Which, and it, like what Quan was saying earlier, we have to put some of this blame on our own culture. Right. And part of that culture is hip hop, right? And the media, TV, movies, and a lot of things.
These damn reality shows like Real Housewives of Atlanta.
I don't.
Black
even
people
watch
don't
that
act
show.
like this.
Yeah,
like this show, I can't watch it because
I don't watch any reality shows.
No, because it's not a representation.
Yeah.
And now, when they came out, we always thought they were real reality. Now they have to change the name to scripted reality because it's not real.
Yeah, yeah. And these are people in most of these reality shows. These people is what happens when you give broke people money and a camera.
Yeah.
And I don't care who you are, black, white, Asian, whatever. You take a broke person, a poor person, a person with a very poor mentality, and you give them more money than they've ever had, which by any means could just be $100,000 for a season, right? It doesn't have to be millions of dollars. But you take a person who's been, scraping by on 35 to 40K a year, and you give them $100K to film this show for 3 months. All of a sudden, they will act the fool, right? But guess what? That makes good TV. That's good for ratings. the sad part about this is now these people are representing an entire culture of people, right? Who grow
Because
up
that's
and
what
live
you
in those
see
same
on
areas
TV.
because people see it on TV
Yes.
and think this is what goes down for real,
years,
right?
Blacks could not get roles on TV
Mm-hmm.
of sophisticated people,
Right.
educated people. They had to be drug dealers,
Right.
pimps, prostitutes, the criminal in the show.
Right.
You know what I mean? A lot of strides have been made since then. You know what I mean? Like we
Yeah.
have a whole movie, Black Panther, where everybody in the show is black and is a superhero.
Man, shout out to Tyler Perry for opening up the first black-owned movie studio,
Yeah.
which from what I've heard is bigger than like the Disney, the Warner Brothers studios.
I don't like that comparison just
And-
because
Yeah,
it's bigger in physical size.
yeah.
But these guys do $300 billion worth of
Right,
movies
right,
a
right.
year.
It's not it's
I
not
don't-
about that, but he did it on his own
Right.
without being backed. And here's the big thing. I'm not a huge fan of Tyler Perry's movies. However, I do appreciate the fact that in every movie, the good guys, the bad guys, are black people in high social standing, meaning there are black doctors, black lawyers, black people who are doing well, and all the black people in his movies are not just some low life,
right.
stun
I'm
bums
actually,
on
I
the
am
street.
actually
So,
a fan of Tyler Perry because I like the fact that he portrays.
Yeah,
I think he does a good job of portraying.
I
black
like
families.
him and his mission more than I am entertained by his movies.
Right.
You know what
Yeah,
I mean?
feel like
But
he
yeah,
does a
yeah,
good job
I
of portraying black families.
if he asks for donations, I give.
Yeah,
Like, I
right.
appreciate
Yeah.
Tyler Perry.
Yeah. And I think that he does a great job of hiring other minorities, but he
Yes.
doesn't just hire minorities. You know what I mean? Like
Exactly.
Yeah,
Yeah.
So, like,
yeah,
I got mad. And if you learn his story about how he rented a theater to
Yeah.
put on his first play, and like he came out of his own pocket. And he had to hustle. And he didn't have any money
yeah,
to do this, and he convinced. Like I got mad respect for Tyler Perry and his hustle too.
yeah.
Like I'm a big fan of Tyler.
So big
Perry.
shout out to Tyler
Yeah.
Perry.
He was, by the way, you were terrible as Alex Cross, Tyler. Like, okay, everything else I can deal with, but like, come on, man. Like,
He too tall to do action, man.
Yeah,
You can't.
yeah.
Keenan Wayne's tried it, man. You too tall. Once you too tall, man.
Yeah.
They don't. I think The Rock is like just a freak of nature where he could do it. The Rock is like 6'5", but I think Tyler Perry and Keenan Wayne's are both like 6'7",
Yeah, but-
6'8", something
Right,
like
but
some
Tyler
ridiculous
Perry
amount of
is
tall.
he was an
Yeah.
athlete to begin with, like so like,
Yeah.
you can pull off something. But I respect what he's done.
Yeah.
I respect the fact that he has open auditions for most of his
Mhm.
like stuff. And I think he does a lot of good in the community.
Yeah.
Also, so big props to Tyler Perry and the new studio. Congratulations on that. But I don't even know. Like this is
Yeah.
another one of those things we could talk about for like 14 days. But I don't think that you can give Latinos a pass. If I can't get on a record like Cardi
Yeah.
B and say "spick" every 5 words and try and find a word that rhymes with that, she can't say the word either.
Yeah.
Especially when
I
she
agree.
doesn't claim to be Black American. She claims to be, and
Yeah.
understand that. I don't know if other races know this, but like Latinos
Mhm.
are a very wide spectrum of color.
Yeah, they are.
Especially like if you go to Cuba, like
Yeah.
you'll see Cubans that look as white as Quan over here.
Yeah.
You'll see
I don't
them.
know if white people know this.
What's that? You say?
You said I don't know if white people know this.
I didn't say white. I said other people.
Oh, okay.
I didn't. I thought about saying white people, but I did not say. I'm just.
Yeah.
A lot of people don't know
Speaking
that,
for
like,
all white people, yes, we do know.
that Latinos come in a very wide range of colors,
right.
from very dark to very white.
Right.
And there's actually a big thing within the Latino community between light skinned, medium skinned, and
Yeah.
dark skinned people. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like they really don't like it's colorism. Like African Americans, same thing. Like
Yeah.
we get mad at light skinned people for passing.
Yeah.
We get mad at dark skinned people for treating light skinned people like they're white.
Right.
And the same thing happens in the Latino community. And those
Right.
are things that we need to clean up and clear up within our own communities.
Right.
And we're a long way from that.
Yeah.
And I
And-
think, go ahead.
Yeah, I was gonna say. In the meantime, though, if you're singing a song, I don't care if you use an N word, and I think we've made that point. But if you're not singing a song, if you're having a conversation, if you're if you're talking about people or talking to people about other people, like I don't really care about the context you're using the word, unless you're telling me something. Like unless you're coming to me saying, Steve, this dude over here, like he said the word nigga like 50 times. Like, if that's the word that came out, if that's how you say it, okay, fine. Like, you're telling me something somebody said. But if you're coming to me like, man, Steve, I can't stand these niggas over here. Like, don't say that to me. Like, don't use that word in that context where you're describing another person as that. Because number one, it's disrespectful. And number two, especially like, I mean, honestly, I want to say especially if you're not black, but honestly, black or not, is like, man, look, we're grown. You haven't found other words to use. You know what I'm saying? Like, if you're still a teenager and your parents didn't teach you, and basically you're being raised by your friends and what you see on social media and cable TV, then I don't want to say it's allowable, but I get it if that's the only vocabulary you really know. But if you're my age, I'm 39. I'm not even gonna say my age. If you're over 25,
I don't even think. I mean, if you're out of high school, like
at some point you have to understand that there are better words to use. These guys over here, these dudes. If you don't like them, these punks. Like there's so many different words. Like,
be like Samuel Jackson, say motherfucker.
I mean anything. You know what I'm saying? Like, at least we know where people stand with that word. You know what I'm saying? Like, you can use it here, you can't use it here, right?
Anthony also said on Facebook, he said the word is exploited, but blacks are making millions from it. That doesn't make it excusable. Like, because it's a word derogatory for black people. Oh, but they're making money off it, so that almost makes it worse.
Let me tell you something. Porn is $1 billion industry. You gonna let your kids watch it?
Well, are you gonna let your kids participate in it?
Right. You know what I'm saying? Like, if somebody says like, oh yeah, she's a porn star, does like respect, is that the first word that comes to your mind? I mean, just because somebody's making money off something doesn't make it okay. There's scam artists every day. There's people who rob banks for a living. I mean, come on, just because we got to get past that. Like, yeah, money is a great tool.
If they weren't using that word, I don't think they would make less money.
Eminem doesn't use the word.
Yeah, I was just like, Eminem didn't use it.
I mean, and he's probably making more money than most artists even now.
I tell people all the time, if with radio and music, when they come in to record music and everything, I always tell people you're never gonna gain more followers or listeners by cussing. Right. But you do have a chance to lose more by that, because I can't listen to that with my nieces and nephews in the car.
Exactly.
So, like, I do stand-up comedy, and, like, I listen to, like, other comedians talk about things they've gone through and stuff like that. And I had wrote a skit, and I used the word bitch in the skit.
Right.
Because I thought it was effective and it would bring laughter at the point. And then I went and watched the video, and I think it was Louis C.K., I'm not for sure.
Mm-hmm. And
he made the comment that using the word bitch to get a laugh is like the wrong reason to use the word. Like, right? Okay. There's so many other things you could do to get a laugh.
Right.
But if you have to sink to that point to get a laugh, then the joke is just bad.
Right.
You know, and I feel like if you have to say nigger to sell a record, then the record is just bad. Right. It's just a bad song. Yeah. If you can't get your point across without any other word, I'm how many words in the Webster Dictionary? A lot.
Yeah.
like, over 100.
Here's a funny thing. So I'm a big fan of Run the Jewels, right? Killer Mike and LP. And this was a couple years ago. Me and my homeboy Matt, Matt, we went to Run the Jewels concert, right? So
Jules, he's saying Jules, not Jules.
Run the Jewels, not the Jews. Run the Jewels, right? So we go to this concert, and one of the acts that came on before, the main event, guy was pretty cool, right? He did like 4 or 5 songs. Maybe his 4th song, 3rd or 4th, before the end, he had a song, and it was kind of reminiscent of like a 90s song where he just kind of repeated like the same words at the end of each like bar,
Right.
But the word he was repeating was like, it was like something, my nigga, something, my nigga, something. And it was like, and me and Matt's white, right? So me and Matt are standing there. And at first we were kind of like, all right. And then after we heard like my nigga like 8 times, we were like, Matt looks at me and was like, are there any other words to this song?
Because that's all you hear, right?
Yeah, because at some point, that's all you hear. And I'm looking around. This crowd is mixed. It's black, white, Asians. Like, I mean, they got a mixed crowd here.
Were the white people and black
And you can
Asian
see,
people
like,
singing?
they were all like looking around, like what just happened? Because the guy was good up until that point, and everybody was like, well, wait a minute, like, is this a trick? You know what I'm saying? Like what happened? And I don't know. And ode to Killer Mike for this. I don't know if he picked up on it, but the next song the guy had, Killer Mike came out and did a verse to, which kind of got the crowd back into it because the crowd was mixed and they were not feeling my nigga 85 times in a 4-minute period. You know what I mean? It's okay, great. That's good. You from the hood. That's for your homies. Whatever. Now you mean to tell me you're gonna put this album out, and if white kid Little Johnny is walking through Walmart with his Beats headphones on, listening to it through his iPad or iPhone or whatever, and he's reciting the lyrics and you hear it, you gonna be cool with it?
Right.
You see what I'm saying? So if you're gonna make the music, then anybody can sing it.
We're gonna wrap this up real quick, but I think there's three black men that I want to point out specifically because they left that word behind, right?
Mm-hmm.
I can't think of any record that he ever used. It was Will Smith.
Mm-hmm.
I can't think of any, and Will Smith has sold millions and millions of albums, and now he's getting $20-30 million a movie, right? And
say what you want about him. He's a blueprint for success.
He is.
From hip hop to Hollywood to doing whatever he feels like doing right now.
Ice Cube left the word behind.
Ice Cube?
Like when you watch his movies now, he doesn't say the word.
Yeah.
He hasn't said it since his last album, which was God knows how long ago. Like he doesn't use the word, and white people look at him differently because Ice Cube, he's that black guy, right? He's the black guy that they've almost forgot is black.
He even said in an interview about the N-word, you know, I think it was on Bill Maher, and asked him, like, you know, why can't white people use it? And he said, it's our word now.
Right.
And I can respect that. But even so, we don't have to use that word. Right. You know what I mean? So shout out to Ice Cube, too. Yeah.
Ice-T.
Ice-T.
I mean, he wrote one of the coldest records of all time in Colors, right?
Yeah.
I am a nightmare, walking psychopath, talking just to keep going. Like that's one of those like records like you just can't forget the lyrics to.
Yeah.
He's left it behind, right?
Yeah.
Like he's on SVU, which is like the longest running television show of all time, and they got a black guy on it who doesn't use that word. In fact, everything he does in the show is the opposite of a black stereotype, right? He's a caring father, a black man of a gay son. Like he is everything the opposite of what you know you think of black people.
Right.
Or that's been portrayed on TV before. Right. He's the exact opposite of that. He's a cop. He's a good person. He's got a job. He takes care of his family. Like what? But he's come from the point where at one point, Ice Cube was one of the most hated rappers in the country. And people like the press was going after him because of what's the Police song?
Ice-T did.
It's not After Police. That was NWA.
That was NWA.
I can't think of the Ice-T song.
Was it Body Count or Cop Killer?
Cop Killer.
It was actually called Cop Killer. Yeah.
So,
Body Count, his name is Band. That's right. Yeah.
So, like, people, like, he's come so far from that and he's transitioned. But it shows that what we can do as black peoples, if we transcend and leave this behind, right?
I mean, it's called growth.
That's a good word.
You know what I mean? Like it's
How do you
called
spell
growth.
That so we can Google that.
GROWTH.
Okay, so
growth.
Google that word. Yeah, Google that so you understand. Like,
yeah.
All right, you guys. This has been a great show. I think because I thank everybody for checking in. Hi, Dusty. She's checking us out right now. I thank everybody for checking us out. We will be back next Thursday. If our producer shows up in time, we'll be on at 12.
Around 12 o'clock.
Pacific Standard Time.
Is that the Joker line?
What's so funny?
Don't make fun of Quan, man.
So thank you guys for hanging out with us again this week. We will see you next week, 12 Pacific Standard Time. This has been Negro Please. I'm your host, Dallas Scott, and that's Hollywood Huff. And our producer, Quan Define, 5'9". I can't even say that.